All right, so get this. Imagine your body's like this super advanced, like, security system,
Right.
always watching, monitoring everything around it.
Yeah.
That's our senses at work, right?
Yeah.
But have you ever, like, stopped to think about how those signals from out there in the world actually become something our brain gets, understands? Like, how does that even happen?
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing process when you think about it.
Right.
So we have these specialized cells called sensory receptors, and each type is tuned to a very specific kind of stimulus. They're like these little sensors
Yeah.
picking up information about everything.
Yeah.
Light, sound, chemicals, pressure, temperature, you name it.
Wow.
Today we're gonna dive deep into these sensory receptors
I like it.
and really uncover how they let us experience the world.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's day 66 of our deep dive journey.
All right.
We are tackling sensory receptor types. Got a whole stack of research here about chemoreceptors, photoreceptors, mechanoreceptors, thermoreceptors, and nociceptors.
Hitting all the big ones.
Phew. It's a lot. But I'm ready to decode the language of my senses.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
It really is like each type of receptor speaks a different language.
Yeah.
And your brain is this incredible translator,
Yeah.
converting those signals into something meaningful.
That makes sense.
The key process here is called transduction.
Transduction. Okay, that sounds like a big word.
It is, but it's really at its core.
Break it down for me.
Yeah, it's the process of converting one form of energy into another.
Okay.
So for our senses, sensory receptors take those external stimuli, like light waves hitting your eye,
Yeah.
or, the pressure of touch on your skin,
Got it.
and transform them into electrical signals that your nervous system can actually use.
So these receptors, they're like
Yeah.
energy converters, changing like the outside world language into brain language.
You got it.
That's crazy.
It's pretty wild. And your body has so many different
Yeah.
types of these receptors.
Okay.
It's incredible.
Give me a number.
Over 20 different types.
Wow. Okay.
Each one fine-tuned for a specific job.
Okay, I'm ready to meet these sensory superstars then.
Right.
Let's kick things off with chemoreceptors.
Okay, good one.
I know they've got something to do with like taste and smell, but like what's the big picture here?
So think of chemoreceptors as your body's like chemical detectors. They're in charge of, taste and smell, which is how we enjoy good food, avoid dangers.
Yeah.
But they also play a critical role in keeping our insides running, right?
Oh, internal environment.
Exactly.
So not just like sniffing around out in the world.
No, not just the external environment,
Oh, yeah.
for example, in your blood vessels.
Okay.
You have chemoreceptors constantly checking oxygen and carbon dioxide levels.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which helps regulate breathing.
Huh.
There's even chemoreceptors in your digestive system,
Oh, wow.
looking for nutrients and toxins.
I had no idea they were so multi-talented.
They are busy.
So taste buds and like sniffing out danger, that's chemoreceptors.
It's a good summary.
In a nutshell.
They're essential, like really vital for survival.
Yeah.
Giving us key info about the chemicals around us
Right.
and inside us.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
All right, next up, photoreceptors.
Yeah.
The light detectors, these are hanging out in our eyes, right?
That's right. Right.
But how do they actually work?
All right. So photoreceptors are really remarkable.
Okay.
They have these light-sensitive pigments that change shape
Whoa.
when light hits them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And this shape-shifting sets off a whole cascade of chemical reactions. And that's how we get the electrical signal.
Huh. Interesting.
And believe it or not,
Yeah.
where these photoreceptors are placed.
Actually explains why we see the way we do.
Really? Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this placement.
So the photoreceptors that give us that sharp, detailed vision are all concentrated in a tiny spot on the back of your eye called the fovea.
The fovea.
As you move away from that spot,
Yeah.
those receptors become less concentrated.
Okay.
Which is why our peripheral vision, it's not as sharp.
So that's why, like, I can see something out of the corner of my eye.
Exactly.
But it's blurry until I, like, turn my head and look right at it.
Yep.
It's like our eyes have a built-in zoom function.
Exactly, yeah.
That's so cool.
It's a really smart adaptation.
Really?
Lets us focus on what's important,
Right.
but still stay aware of what's around us.
Awesome. All right. Let's move on to mechanoreceptors.
Okay.
Now, I know they're all about touch.
Yeah.
But what else do they do?
So mechanoreceptors are all about
Touch.
sensing physical forces.
Okay.
They respond to touch, pressure, vibration, even sound waves. Think about feeling a gentle breeze on your skin,
Yeah.
or the rumble of thunder, or like the vibration of your phone.
Right, right.
All that's thanks to mechanoreceptors.
So they're like our body's internal microphones and like pressure gauges.
That's a great way to think about it.
That's pretty cool.
And they're not just for outside stuff either.
Okay.
Mechanoreceptors in your blood vessels
Uh-huh.
help monitor your blood pressure.
Right.
And in your lungs, they detect stretching as you breathe.
It's amazing how these tiny little receptors keep our body going, doing their thing.
Keeping everything running smoothly.
All right, let's warm things up a bit.
Okay.
With thermoreceptors.
All right.
How do they help us sense temperature?
So thermoreceptors are like our internal thermometers.
Mhm.
They have these ion channels
Okay.
that open and close
Yeah.
depending on the temperature,
Okay.
and that triggers the signal to the brain.
All right, that makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't want to rely on the same sensor to tell me if I'm touching like a hot stove
Exactly.
or an ice cube.
You need that distinction.
Right. But how does our brain know the difference?
So it's all about the pathways that these
Ah.
signals travel on.
Right.
When a hot thermoreceptor is activated,
Yeah.
the signal takes a different path
Okay.
than when a cold one is activated.
Gotcha. So the brain's like, ooh, this is the hot pathway. This must be hot.
Exactly, yeah.
This is the cold pathway. This is cold.
Precisely.
That's a pretty clever system.
It's elegant.
Okay, last but not least, we got nociceptors.
Right, the pain detectors.
Yeah, I have a feeling this one's going to be a little intense.
Well, pain it's complex,
Yeah.
but it's essential. We need it for survival.
Right.
Nociceptors get activated by potentially harmful things, like extreme temperatures or pressure or chemicals released by damaged tissues.
So they're like an alarm system.
Exactly.
Like, pay attention, something's wrong.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
And like the other receptors, we have different types of nociceptors for different types of pain.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah, it allows us to experience pain in different ways.
Yeah.
From a sharp stabbing pain
Right.
to a dull ache.
So there we have them, all 5 of our sensory receptor all-stars.
There you go.
Chemoreceptors, photoreceptors, mechanoreceptors, thermoreceptors, and nociceptors.
I did it.
It's amazing how these little tiny cells
I know.
let us experience the world in all of its amazingness, complexity.
And that's just the beginning.
Oh.
In the next part of our dive, we'll explore how understanding all of this can lead to some incredible advances in medicine, technology, even how we understand consciousness.
Ooh. Okay, now you've got me really hooked.
Right.
Can't wait to see where we go next.
Let's do it. It's really wild to think that all these experiences start with these tiny receptors.
Yeah.
Translating the world into brain signals.
Yeah, it's like each one is like a specialist.
Exactly.
Trained to pick up a certain type of input.
Right.
But I'm curious, like, how much can we actually mess with these systems? Can we trick them?
That's the really cool part.
Yeah.
Enhance them or even create like totally new senses.
Whoa.
Scientists are doing some amazing stuff
Yeah.
with understanding and manipulating these receptors.
Just give me an example.
Okay, so in hearing, right,
Mm-hmm.
cochlear implants,
Yeah.
they actually bypass those damaged hair cells
Okay.
in the inner ear,
Mm-hmm.
and they directly stimulate the auditory nerve.
Wow.
So people with profound hearing loss can actually perceive sound.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So we're like replacing a biological sensor with a
right, yeah.
technological one. That's a great way to put it.
That's great. Are there similar things?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, for other senses.
Yeah.
Researchers are working on retinal implants
Okay.
to try and restore vision
Wow.
for people with certain types of blindness.
Okay.
And those work by using tiny electrodes
Okay.
to stimulate those healthy cells
What?
in the retina
Yeah.
that are still there,
Yeah.
bypassing the damaged photoreceptors.
That's like giving sight back to people who have lost it.
It's pretty amazing the things we can do now.
It really is. It's mind-blowing. What about like
Yeah.
enhancing our existing senses? Is that even possible?
There are some really exciting possibilities there.
Okay.
Like imagine glasses that could enhance your vision
Okay.
so you could see in infrared or ultraviolet,
Whoa, okay.
or devices that could like boost your sense of touch
Right?
so you could feel textures with like incredible detail.
That's like superpowers.
It really is.
It makes you wonder, like, what limits? Yeah.
We'll be able to like break through in the future.
It's an exciting time.
But let's go back to the basics for a sec.
Okay.
You mentioned that different types of receptors
Yeah.
are responsible for different sensations. How does that actually work? Like, let's take taste, for example.
Okay, good.
How do we tell the difference between sweet, sour, salty, bitter?
It all comes down to the specific types of chemoreceptors on your tongue. Each taste has its own dedicated receptor.
Wow.
It's like a lock and key. When a certain chemical in food interacts with the right receptor, it triggers that signal that goes to your brain, and you experience that taste.
So it's like our taste buds have this whole library of locks.
I like that, yeah.
And each flavor molecule has like the unique key to unlock that taste sensation.
You got it.
That's pretty cool.
It is.
And then I guess the intensity of the taste depends on how many of those keys are fitting in the locks.
Exactly. So the more molecules that bind, the stronger that signal and the more intense the taste.
That's why some flavors are like subtle.
Right.
And others are like, whoa.
Exactly. It's like adding more spice.
Yeah. Like
you add more, the flavor's stronger.
Exactly. What about vision?
Okay.
Light's not a chemical.
Right.
So how do photoreceptors actually work?
So photoreceptors, they use this amazing molecule called retinol.
Retinol.
And it's super sensitive to light.
Okay.
When a photon of light hits retinol, it changes shape.
Oh, wow.
And that shape change, triggers this whole chain reaction that sends a signal to the brain.
So it's like retinol is this tiny switch that gets flipped by light.
That's a good way to think about it.
That's wild.
And just like with taste receptors, different types of photoreceptors are tuned to different wavelengths of light, which is how we see different colors.
That's incredible.
Yeah, our eyes are basically taking the whole spectrum of light and translating it into all those colors.
Wow. Okay, what about touch then?
Okay, so touch.
How do those mechanoreceptors actually sense those physical forces?
A lot of them rely on these things called ion channels, which are basically like tiny gates controlling the flow of charged particles in and out of the cell.
Right.
When you stimulate a mechanoreceptor, these channels open and close. That changes the electrical potential of the cell.
Right.
And that's what triggers a nerve impulse.
So it's like pressing a button that opens a gate, lets a burst of electrical signals through.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Cool.
And the type and location of that mechanoreceptor will determine what kind of sensation you feel.
So like the ones in our fingertips.
Exactly.
Super sensitive.
Yeah, densely packed.
So we can feel those fine textures. And like little tiny pressure changes.
Right. That's why you can tell the difference between silk and sandpaper just by touch.
It's amazing how specialized they are.
It really is.
Okay, now thermoreceptors. How do they know if something's hot or cold?
So they also use those ion channels, but these are sensitive to temperature, that pressure.
Right, so temperature changes, channels open or close.
Exactly.
Sends that signal to the brain.
It's like having these tiny little thermostats. Embedded in your skin.
Constantly monitoring the temperature.
Always checking, sending reports.
How does our brain know the difference between hot and cold, though?
It's similar to how it figures out taste. Those signals from hot and cold thermoreceptors, they take different paths to get to the brain.
So it's like...
So the brain knows.
Yeah, like hot wires, cold wires going to the brain, no confusion.
Keeps it all straight.
All right. Last but not least, we've got to talk about nociceptors.
The pain detector.
These are responsible for pain.
Yeah.
Super important for survival, but not exactly a sensation we enjoy.
Not always the most fun, but necessary.
Right. How do they actually detect damage?
So nociceptors are pretty versatile. That can be activated by a lot of different things.
Like what?
Extreme temperatures, pressure, chemicals released from damaged tissues.
Right.
All those things can trigger those ion channels to open and send the pain signal.
So they're like the body's alarm system.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Going off when there's potential tissue damage.
Right, like pay attention.
Exactly.
Something's wrong.
Something's not right.
And just like with the other receptors, the location and type of nociceptor will like determine what kind of pain we feel.
Right. So the nociceptors in your skin are different from the ones in your organs.
Right. So we experience pain differently.
Exactly, depending on where it's coming from.
This has been such an awesome deep dive into our senses.
It's fascinating stuff.
I'm starting to like really appreciate just how complex and just incredible these sensory systems are.
It's mind-blowing.
It really is. And we're just getting started.
And if we take all this incredible biology
Yeah.
and connect it to the broader scientific landscape,
Okay.
there are some really mind-blowing implications to think about.
Oh, that sounds intriguing.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear what you have in store for us in the final part.
We'll dive into it.
Okay, so we've gone from like everyday sensations all the way down to like the nitty-gritty of these tiny little sensory receptors.
A molecular level.
It's wild to think
It really is.
that our experience of the world is built on these like biological machines.
Tiny little things.
But now I'm thinking, like, where does this all lead?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah, what's the big picture?
So what's really cool is that this understanding opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
Okay.
Not just for science and technology,
Right.
but for how we see ourselves and our place in the universe.
Okay, that sounds pretty big. Give me some specifics.
Right.
What kind of possibilities are we talking about?
So think about medicine.
Okay.
Imagine being able to treat chronic pain by targeting specific nociceptors.
Wow.
Or developing gene therapies to fix genetic defects that cause sensory disorders.
So, like, we're
already seeing progress with things like cochlear implants, retinal prosthetics.
Yeah.
The potential is huge.
It's incredible to think, like, we could repair and even enhance our own senses.
It's amazing.
What about beyond medicine, though?
Right.
Where else does this knowledge take us?
Well, the sky's the limit.
Okay.
Think about virtual reality experiences. Yeah. So immersive, they feel real because they're tapping directly into our sensory pathways.
Oh.
Or how about human-machine interfaces where you can control things with your thoughts?
Wow.
Using brainwave patterns.
That sounds like straight out of science fiction.
It does, doesn't it?
It's exciting, but also kind of, I don't know, a little scary.
It is. It raises some big questions.
Yeah.
If we can manipulate our senses,
right,
what does that mean for our perception of reality?
Yeah.
Can we create new senses?
Right.
Are we changing what it means to be human?
Whoa, those are some heavy questions.
They are.
It seems like the more we learn about our senses, the more we realize how much we don't know.
That's the beauty of it.
But I feel like that's what makes this journey so fascinating.
I agree. It's the mystery that keeps us going.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners today?
Good question.
Like, what should we be thinking about as we go about our day, experiencing the world?
I think the biggest thing is to appreciate the incredible complexity, the wonder of our sensory systems.
It really is pretty amazing.
Every sight, every sound, every smell, every taste, every touch. It's all the result of this incredible symphony of biological processes fine-tuned over millions of years of evolution.
What's this mind about?
And as we keep unlocking these secrets, we're not just expanding our knowledge.
Right.
We're deepening our appreciation for the beauty and richness of being human.
I love that. So well said.
Thank you.
So next time you enjoy a good meal, listen to some music, or just, feel the sun on your skin.
Right.
Take a minute to think about your senses and how amazing they are.
It's a gift.
And how those sensations actually get to your brain.
It's a long journey.
And just keep exploring.
Yeah.
Keep questioning.
Keep diving deeper.
Keep diving deeper.
With those mysteries.
Until next time, keep those senses sharp.
Absolutely.
And your curiosity alive.
That's what it's all about.